Good evening and welcome to this virtual meeting of Full Council of Allerdale Borough Council. My name is Gail Roach, I'm the Democratic Services Manager, and for the purpose of today's meeting, I'm also the host, assisting the Chair with the use of technology. We are currently live streaming on YouTube and a recording will be made available following the meeting. Shortly, I'll hand you over to the Chair to formally start the meeting, but first we'll do some introductions. Can I ask all attendees, please, to introduce themselves, starting with the members. Councillor Annison.
Councillor Tony Annison.
Councillor Bainbridge.
Councillor Mary Bainbridge.
Councillor Bell.
Councillor Carmel Bell.
Councillor Briggs.
Councillor Herbert Briggs.
Councillor Campbell Savers.
Councillor Campbell Savers.
Councillor Cook.
Councillor John Cook.
Councillor Crouch.
Councillor John Crouch.
Councillor Daniels.
Councillor Alan Daniels.
Councillor Fairbrother.
Good evening, Councillor Janet Fairbrother.
Councillor Fitzgerald.
Good evening, Councillor Marion Fitzgerald.
Councillor Gaston.
Good evening, Councillor Peter Gaston.
Councillor Granger.
Councillor Malcolm Granger.
Councillor Greenie.
Hi, good evening, Councillor Ian Greenie.
Councillor Heaslip.
Hello, Councillor Michael Heaslip.
Councillor Hedworth.
Good evening, Councillor Alan Hedworth.
Councillor Hodgson.
Good evening, Councillor Vaughan Hodgson.
Councillor Horsley.
Good evening, Councillor Daniel Horsley.
Councillor Johnson.
Good evening, Councillor Mike Johnson.
Councillor Kemp.
Good evening, Councillor George Kemp.
Councillor Kendall. Councillor Kendall. I'll come back to him. Councillor King.
Councillor King, sorry.
Councillor Kirkbride.
Councillor Kirkbride.
Good evening.
Councillor Lansbury.
Councillor Lansbury, good evening.
Councillor Lister.
Good evening, Councillor Lister.
Councillor Little.
Good evening, Councillor Peter Little.
Councillor Lynch.
Good evening, Councillor Elaine Lynch.
Councillor Maguire.
Good evening, Councillor Maguire.
Councillor Markley.
Good evening, Councillor Tony Markley.
Councillor Martin.
Councillor Owen Martin.
Councillor McCarran Holmes.
Good evening, Connie McCarran Holmes.
Councillor Mumby.
Good evening, Councillor Don Mumby.
Councillor Pitcher.
Good evening, Councillor Alan Pitcher.
Councillor Smith.
Good evening, Councillor Joe Sandworth.
Councillor Scott.
Good evening, Councillor Paul Scott.
Councillor Semple.
Right, I think
Evening,
I'm back on again.
Councillor.
If they don't stop fannying around with the screen, yeah.
Sorry, I'll just repeat that. Councillor Semple.
Yeah.
Good evening, Councillor Andrew Semple.
Thank you. Councillor Smith.
Good evening, Councillor Alan Smith.
Councillor Stoddart.
How are you doing, mate?
Councillor Tyson. Councillor Tyson. And Councillor Wilkinson.
Good evening, Councillor Wilkinson.
Thank you. We do have present this evening Councillors Kendall and Councillor Tyson. They're experiencing some audio technical issues at the moment, which we'll address. Can I also just make some apologies for some language that you may have heard there? Can I now go to the officers, please?
Can I just interject? I do apologise, but if somebody would stop moving the flaming screen around, would be all right. I do apologise. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I now move to the officers, please? Andrew Seekins.
Good evening, Andrew Seekins, Chief Executive Officer.
Sharon Sewell.
Good evening, Sharon Sewell, Monitoring Officer.
Catherine Nicholson. Catherine Nicholson, can you hear us?
Apologies, the mute button wouldn't work. Sorry. Good evening, Catherine Nicholson, Chief Officer Assets and Section 151 Officer.
Thank you. And Lee.
Good evening, Lee Jardine, Democratic Services Officer.
Thank you, everybody. Can I please remind you all to put your mute buttons on and remain on mute throughout the meeting unless you intend to speak. Can you use the raise hand icon if you wish to speak, and only do so when instructed to by the chair. Once you've finished speaking, please can you remember to lower the hand. I will now hand you over to the chair to formally start the meeting. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Gail. Good evening and welcome to the full council meeting of Allerdale Borough Council. Today, Wednesday the 3rd of March 2021. As previously stated, I am Councillor Malcolm Granger. I am Deputy Mayor of Allerdale and will be chairing tonight's meeting. Item 1, to approve and a correct record the minutes of the council meeting held on the 27th of January 2021. For the purpose of this virtual meeting, I will assume that all members are in agreement with the minutes unless they use the raise hand function to indicate that they wish to speak. Can members please indicate now? Thank you. The minutes are approved. Item 2, apologies for absence. Could I have any apologies for absence, please, Gail?
Yes, we have apologies from Councillors Armstrong, Coburn, Harrington, Sansom and Williams, Chair. Everybody else is present.
Item 3, declaration of interest. Councillors and staff to give notice of any interest relating to any item on the agenda in accordance with the adopted code of conduct. Are there any declarations of interest? Right. Item 4, exclusion of the press and public. There are no items we are discussing this evening that will be in private. Item 5, questions and petitions. No questions have been received. I am going to hand over to the Monitor Officer, Sharon Sewell. Over to you, Sharon.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. I'd just like to advise all members that we have received an urgent motion today from Councillor Pitcher to be considered by the full council this evening. The motion is for the council to elect a leader of Allerdale Borough Council. For the motion to be considered as urgent, it must be the case that the Mayor, in this case the Deputy Mayor, considers that any delay in considering the motion would seriously prejudice the council's or the public interest. The relevant legislation is set out in paragraph 4, subsection 5 of Schedule 12 of the Local Government Act 1972. And the relevant procedural rule of the Constitution is 4.18.1. Councillor Pitcher has set out his reasons as follows. My reasoning is for quite a while now, the position of leader has been carried out by the Deputy Leader, Mike Johnson. In view of the local elections, county, being cancelled, also that the local government review has been put out to consultation, I feel that we are now coming up to a crucial time. Not least with 5 by-elections looming, also it's budget time, which requires stability. We are 2 months from the AGM and important policy decisions are to be made, which will require consistent and steady leadership. I firmly believe that the council has been led with a certain degree of clarity and stability over this last year, but some of us clearly do not. I confirm that the Deputy Mayor has carefully considered the urgent motion and the rationale as stated, including the importance of stable and clear leadership at this time, and has determined that the motion will be considered at the meeting this evening. This reasoning will be included in the minutes of this meeting in accordance with the legislation.
I'm okay.
I can hear Councillor Tyson. I confirm that I will now hand over to the Deputy Mayor to take nominations for the election of leader from the floor.
I'd like to call on Councillor Pitcher for his nomination, please.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. I'd like to nominate Councillor Mike Johnson for the position of leader of Allerdale Borough Council. Thank you.
Do we need a seconder? Do we need a seconder for that?
Yes, please.
Would anyone like to second that proposal?
I've got my hand up there, Chairman. I would like to second that motion, please. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Martley. Are there any other nominations from the floor, please? Councillor Greenie.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I would like to nominate Alan Smith for position of leader.
Could I have a seconder, please?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Councillor Stoddart.
You know about that.
Are there any other nominations, please? So we have first nomination is Mike of you, Gail. First nomination is Mike Johnston, and the second nomination is Alan Smith. Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We will take this to a vote. Councillors, for your vote, can you please say the name of the person who you are voting for or whether you abstain? The vote on the election of a leader will be taken by a majority of those present and voting at this meeting, and any abstentions will not count. Councillor Anderson.
Councillor Mike Johnson.
1 minute, Councillor Smith's got his hand up.
Madam Mayor, Mr. Deputy Mayor, I'd like to withdraw from that from this contest, please.
All right.
I don't think I'm in the position to take this council for the present moment in time.
I'll hand it over to you now, Sharon, if I can.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. The proposer and the seconder of the nomination has to agree to the withdrawal of that nomination, but I would like to point out to the proposer and seconder that Councillor Smith has given his reasons why he doesn't want to be nominated, and that in the event that it continues and he was elected as a leader of Allerdale Borough Council, he could then resign, so I would just ask councils to consider that sensibly. Thank you.
Councillor Stoddart, you have your hand up.
Yes, Thank you, Malcolm. I would just like to object to this whole process. Why are we doing this now? Why can't we leave this until
Stephen, sorry. No, this is now the time
council's
to
turned
play.
into a pantomime.
This is now the time to play.
Right,
Malcolm, you turn it into a pantomime.
I think if I can just come in, councillors.
This is all wrong, this, you know.
It's all wrong. It's been set up. It's all wrong.
It's a setup.
Contrived for the last 10 months. It's shocking.
It bloody is.
A bit of order, please. You are councillors. This is not a bowling match, please.
You're doing this behind the public's back. That's what you're doing.
Can I remind
You're stealing the council.
Speaking.
You're stealing the council. That's what you're doing. It's wrong.
Disgraceful. Absolutely shocking.
Why can't we wait till the AGM in May and sort it all out?
Listen, lads, I want
for
to give
10 months,
order.
for 10 months without a leader.
Listen.
This is wrong.
You're stealing our council.
Stephen, please, a bit of order.
No, well, why don't you leave it for 2 months and then we'll sort it out then?
Please.
You just seizing an opportunity. That's what you're doing. It's bloody rotten, this council.
Stephen, a bit of order, please.
Can I suggest that all the independents just walk away from this meeting because it's a joke?
Can I remind members of the code of conduct and the procedural rules? The Mayor is speaking.
You are stealing this council off the independents. That's what you're doing. And the people of West Cumbria, of Allerdale. You're stealing its bloody council off us.
You can see what's happening, you know. You can actually see what's happening.
It's absolutely disgusting.
Are we allowed to nominate as many people as we want?
No.
Why not?
We have two nominations on the floor.
This council, the pantomime.
Stephen, we have two nominations on the floor. Can we go for a vote, please?
No, we won't go for no votes. It's a bloody pantomime. You're stealing this council off the independents. That's what you're doing. I don't know how you sleep at night, usually. This whole process is wrong, Murray.
Councillor Stoddard, please, can we have some order?
Well,
very poor form, Sharon. Very poor form.
Choose a leader. You wouldn't choose a leader the other month, would you?
Should be ashamed of yourselves.
You bloody should as well.
In the meeting for 5 minutes.
Absolute disgrace.
Should adjourn the meeting for all night. Councillor Smith isn't in a place to do it, but he's done it for the last 4 years, 8 years.
And Alan Smith, how do you sleep at night as well, Smith?
Sharon, can I propose a motion to close the meeting, please?
Yes, close it, definitely.
No, you.
I'd like to propose.
I'll second that motion.
Close your motion.
And I'll third it.
A closure motion, please. I'd like the meeting closed.
Close your motion.
If members would give me the opportunity, please, to advise on that.
You're just stealing our council, that's what you're doing.
This is a preset planned move, and this is absolutely disgusting. This is disgusting.
It is.
Let our monitoring officers speak, please. We're going to adjourn this meeting.
No, you should close it. You should close
the meeting.
We're going to adjourn this meeting.
Closing the meeting is closed.
Order. Close the motion.
We're going to have an adjournment for 5 minutes. We'll be back at just after 7:30. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Well done.
I did not realise I was dealing with such devious, disgusting individuals.
Oh, it's shocking, isn't it? Absolutely shameless.
Members, can we remind you that the public are watching this? Can we?
Yeah, and the public should see this as well.
No,
see how DVC's conservatives are.
No, can we just
elections of the people who work in West Cumbria?
All I'm reminding members is the language. That's all. I'm reminding members of the language.
The language is clean. The language is clean. It's a principle. They've stole the council off the independent council. That's what you've done.
This is worse than Hansford. I'm telling you, worse.
Shocking, like I tell you. How do you lot sleep at night, say? I don't know.
Members, please.
Thank you.
I will take you through the guidance. I understand Councillor Greeny has got a proposal. We will go through that in accordance with the Constitution. Please, can we remember that we are live and that we are representing Allerdale Borough Council.
Aye.
Thank you.
Exactly.
It's a shame others don't think like that, Sharon.
seem to be having trouble with my connection, I'm afraid, still. I've got a feeling somebody's interfering with the connection.
We can hear you, Ian.
Yeah, but
Councillors, the meeting is about to begin.
It's about the clause, I tell you. Well, I'm going anyways.
Councillor Stoddart, please.
Well, it's a pantomime. It isn't a council meeting. It's a pantomime. You stole the elections. Yeah, you're pretty...
I think people who interrupt all the time should be muted because you should take your turn to speak. Otherwise, it's just chaos. You're causing the chaos by shouting out all the time.
Well, it is chaos. It's a pantomime.
Thank you, Councillor Stoddart. Thank you. Thank you. I now hand over to our monitoring officer, Sharon Sewell, to explain how we're going to do this. All right? No more voices by Sharon Sewell.
This when it's against everything.
Thank you, Mr. Councillor Wilkinson.
19th of February, Mr. Chair.
Councillors, please.
Over to you, Sharon.
Weston Hansford, I'm telling you now. You're about to hit the national news.
Right.
Pantomime council, that's all they are.
Please, councillors. Can we continue with the meeting? And you've asked for advice from the monitoring officer. I'd like to go through the process now, please. We have a proposal for a closure motion for the meeting to be adjourned, and that's been seconded. This is a matter to be considered by the Mayor. Mr. Deputy Mayor has considered this matter and considers that the meeting should continue. We have statutory items on this agenda, councillors. We have the budget and the council tax. We have statutory deadlines to meet. Can we please continue? With this item, we have...
Can I say I'm losing connection again, please?
Councillor Greeny, we can hear you. You have a proposal. We have a proposal and a seconder for the nomination of Councillor Smith.
We have lost Councillor Greeny. Point of order. Can we have an adjournment until we get Councillor Greeny back, please?
Yeah.
We'll have a moment. Officers will contact Councillor Greeny and then we must continue with the meeting. We have two nominations on the table for the leader of Allerdale Borough Council. We have Councillor Johnson and we have Councillor Smith at the moment. Councillor Smith has confirmed that he doesn't want to take the position. So I've asked whether that is going to be withdrawn from Councillor Greeny and Councillor Stoddart. Councillor Stoddart. Sorry, Councillor Stoddart, you're on mute.
Oh, I am going to wait till Councillor Greening rejoins the meet before I commit myself. Thank you.
We must continue with the meeting. If the officers have tried and can't contact the councillor, we will continue. So, Councillor Stoddart.
Well, can I suggest that all the independents just leave this meeting because we've just been overlooked and taken advantage of, and the people of Allerdale didn't vote for this.
It's up to members what they do in terms of the meeting. The officers are phoning Councillor Greeny now, and then we must continue with the meeting. We can't have disturbance of the meeting.
There's no disturbance. It's a discussion. And it's wrong what you're doing, it's wrong. It's been aided and abetted by the Labour group. Partners in crime, the Perriers.
Point of order, we seem to have lost Councillor Scott from the meeting. Can we have an adjournment until we get him back, please?
Yeah, I'll second that with you, William Murray. We'll put down tools so we get everybody back on board.
The councillors are leaving the meeting of their own will.
No, we're not leaving any meeting. We just wait till Councillor Scott and Councillor Greening gets back into the meeting.
We have got...
Can I just be clear that to leave the meeting, that is up to them? Councillor Stoddard, you have just suggested to all the independent members that they leave the meeting. So if they're leaving the meeting, it is their choice to leave the meeting. Of course, if people are suffering with connections, we'll try and do whatever we can. But if people are making the choice that they're leaving the meeting, that's up to
Andrew, the leadership of this council shouldn't be discussed tonight. It shouldn't. This is skullduggery by the Conservatives and the Labour group. Joint
Councillor
skullduggery.
Stoddard, and just to say that in terms of the process, the monitoring officer has gone through the process, explained the requirement around the urgent motion, and that it's the mayor's decision to accept that motion or not. So the monitoring officer has made it very clear in terms of the procedures that we need to follow. Whether individual members like that or not, that is a.
I would like to put it on record, Andrew, that the Conservative group have waited until they've had a Conservative mayor because they have a casting vote. They would not appoint their own leader. We've done this since the last elections and refused and voted against the leader. And now they see a snatch coming where they have a casting vote with the mayor. They now think they can win the motion and take over this council. That is pure skullduggery.
And I'm in full agreement with Councillor Wilkinson.
On a point of order,
you're trying to steal the leadership of the council. That's what you're trying to do. It's wrong.
Sharon.
Why don't you take this motion off tonight's business? We'll concentrate on the budget and everything else, and we'll come back in May and then we'll choose a leader. And I hope all the Labour voters in West Cumbria realise what Alan Smith's doing.
Please.
He supported the Conservatives.
Stephen, please. Over to you, Sharon.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. Officers are making contact with the members now. Once we've made reasonable contact, we'll continue with the meeting in line with our protocol.
Two of them dropped off.
We might be on news at 10.
I hope we are, will we? The Conservatives stole the council in Copeland. They stole it in Allerdale. It's wrong. This isn't democracy, matter. It's theft. They're deceiving the voting public in Allerdale.
Councillor Stoddart, we're going through our processes, please.
Yeah, well, carry on. I'm having a conversation with your mother. The all of Allerdale needs to know what's going on with this council. It's wrong.
I believe this is an attempt to steal before the by-election, Stephen, but it's all right. The by-elections have come and met and they'll know what's going to happen.
Started moving stuff.
Thank you, members. I'll now hand over to Sharon Sewell, our monitoring officer, for guidance. Thank you, Sharon.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. We've had a number of councillors drop out of the meeting. In line with our protocol, we give them 10 minutes. We've made contact with them all and given them the option to dial in. We will now continue with the meeting. We have two nominations for the election of leader, Councillor Johnson and Councillor Smith. Can I hand over
Point of order.
For the vote?
Point of order.
Councillor Wilkinson, you've got to put
Point of order.
rule that you think has been breached.
Yeah, this is not an emergency motion. We have had an election for a leader.
I have advised Councillor
that put himself forward, voted out, and the Tory leader, Mr Johnson, would not even stand for this. This is not an emergency. We have consisted for nearly 12 months without a leader. This is not an emergency, and I call for a closure motion, as I now have no confidence whatsoever in this council. None whatsoever. This is being helped by officers, and I have no confidence whatsoever. This process is flawed. It is.
We'll move for members not to be heard further. Councillor Wilkinson, remove from the meeting.
While I'm talking, I cannot hear a word.
Can we move to the vote, Mr.
No vote. Close the motion.
I second that,
Mr. Chairman.
I second that. I second that. I think you should close this
The
meeting.
motion on the table to close this meeting.
Point of order, Mr. Chairman. I would like to propose a motion to remove Councillor Stoddart and Councillor Wilkinson from the meeting for being consistently disruptive and causing the meeting for delay, please.
I'll happily second that.
This is not a council meeting. This is a kangaroo court.
Excuse me, right, excuse me now. We need to get a grip here. The monitoring officer is speaking. Yes, the monitoring officer is speaking, and she's been very clear about the procedure and the motions that need to be followed. Please.
I will not.
Some decorum, some please, some decorum and some respect. Sharon, please.
Thank you, members. Mr Deputy Mayor, please can we go to the vote?
We'll go for the vote. Thank you. Sorry, Sharon. Would you, Gail? You're muted, Gail.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, I'm having internet issues. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes, we can hear you.
Right, sorry. Thank you, councillors. Please, can you say the name of the candidate that you are voting for, or whether you abstain? Councillor Aniston?
In the name of democracy and not childish petulance, I'm voting for Councillor Mike Hamilton.
Sorry, Gail, could we all refrain from additional comments, please? Could we just make a vote one way or another, or an abstention?
I'll join in now.
Councillor Bainbridge?
Abstain.
Councillor Bell?
Excuse me, I've got my hand up.
Mike Johnson.
Some clarification on where we are in the meeting, please.
Certainly, councillor. We're in the vote for the election of the leader for two nominees, Councillor Johnson and Councillor Smith. I'm up to Councillor Bell. Councillor Briggs, are you on the meeting?
Can you give us a clarification on where we are in the meeting, please?
Sorry, councillor, can you hear me? I've just gave you an update. We're in the vote.
Which vote? For
We're in
to close
vote
the
for
meeting?
No, the election of the leader.
I tabled a motion to close the meeting.
And I seconded it as well.
I advise on that, and the mayor doesn't want to continue with that motion. Please proceed with the vote, Gail.
With the vote? What for?
Election of leader.
and what we're voting for. Who's standing?
There are 2 nominations on the floor, Councillors Johnson and Councillor Smith, and any abstentions. Thank you.
Councillor Briggs, are you on the meeting? Councillor Campbell-Savers, please.
Abstain.
Councillor Cook?
Councillor Johnson.
Councillor Crouch?
Abstain.
Councillor Daniels?
Councillor Mike Johnson.
Councillor Fairbrother?
Councillor Fairbrother, abstain.
Councillor Fitzgerald?
For Councillor Johnson.
Councillor Gaston? Councillor Granger?
Councillor Mike Johnson.
Councillor Greenie? Councillor Greenie? Councillor Heaslip?
Michael Heaslip, abstain.
Councillor Hedworth?
Councillor Hedworth for Councillor Johnson.
Councillor Hodgson?
Councillor Mike Johnson.
Councillor Horsley?
Councillor Horsley, abstain.
Councillor Johnson?
Councillor Mike Johnson.
Councillor Kemp?
Councillor Mark Jenkinson. Oh, sorry, abstain.
Councillor Kendall?
Abstain.
Councillor King?
Councillor King, abstain.
Councillor Kirkbride?
Councillor Kirkbride, abstain.
Councillor Lansbury?
Abstain.
Councillor Lister?
Councillor Lister votes for Mike Johnson.
Councillor Little? No. Councillor Lynch?
Councillor Lynch, abstain.
Hello, can you hear
Councillor
me?
Maguire?
Hello?
Councillor Maguire, abstain.
Councillor Markley?
Councillor Markley for Mike Johnston.
Councillor Martin?
Councillor Martin for Mike Johnston.
Councillor Karen Holmes?
Abstain.
Councillor Mumby?
Councillor Mumby for Mike Johnson.
Councillor Pitcher?
Alan Pitcher for Mike Johnson.
Councillor Stanneth?
Someone
Can anybody hear me? Can anybody hear me? Hello?
Councillor Labour members.
Hello?
Councillor Greenie? Councillor Greenie, yes, we can hear you. Councillor Scott? Councillor Semple?
Councillor Semple, abstain.
Councillor Smith?
Councillor Smith, abstain.
Councillor Stoddart? Councillor Tyson?
Councillor Tyson for Councillor Mike Johnston.
Councillor Wilkinson? Is there anybody present on the meeting that haven't called the name out? Councillor Wilkinson, are you on the meeting? Councillor Wilkinson? Right, okay, just bear with me a second, please, while I add up the votes. Mr. Mayor, there are 15 votes in favour of Councillor Johnson and 16 abstentions. Thank you.
So the vote from Councillor Mike Johnson as leader of Allendale Borough Council is passed. Councillor Mike Johnson, you're now the leader of the council. Thank you for everyone for the vote. We'll now move on to item 6, notice of motion. We have one motion submitted by Councillor Adrian Kirkbride. All speakers on this item have a maximum of 5 minutes, and the councillor moving the motion will have a right of reply at the end of the debate. Councillor Kirkbride, please can you read out your motion, please?
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I'd like to withdraw this motion at this moment because I don't think it's going to get the full attention and there's the lack of people attending. I'd like to withdraw it to a later date, please.
Thank you, Councillor Kirkbride. Mr. Deputy Mayor, the motion can be withdrawn with the consent of the meeting as it's on the agenda. Unless anyone's got any objections, we will consent to the withdrawal. If anyone's got any objections to withdrawal, please can you raise your hand now? No objections, the motion has been withdrawn. We can move on to the next.
If that's all right with you and your seconder, Adrian, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much, son. Thank you. We'll go now to item 7, councillor speeches. To hear speeches from individual members on a local issue in the member's ward. No speeches have been received. Item 8, announcements from the mayor, leader or heads of paid services. Are there any announcements?
Mr. Mayor, if it's okay, I would like to make some announcements.
Thank you very much.
Firstly,
Point of order.
Can you take him off?
No, you can't take me off. I'm raising a point of order, Mr. Chair.
Councillor Wilkinson, please, can we remind you that you must be respectful or there will be a vote to remove you from the meeting.
I am being respectful and it's my point of order with regards respect.
Please can you provide me with the procedural rule and where you think it's been breached? That's a point of order, Councillor Wilkinson. Otherwise, we will continue with this meeting.
The point of order is that our deputy mayor keeps getting called Mr. Mayor. He is not the mayor. He is basically the chair of this meeting, nothing else.
Thank you, Councillor Wilkinson. Noted. Please, can we continue?
Thank you.
Can you carry on with your announcements, please?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I just wanted to ensure that members were aware of the government's announcement on local government reorganisation. An 8-week consultation has been launched on all 4 of the unitary proposals put forward by Cumbria authorities in December. All of the proposals are available on the various council websites, and I would encourage all members and businesses and organisations to submit a response in advance of its closing on the 19th of April. In terms of the council submitting a response to the consultation, I am, of course, keen to ensure that members have their say, and therefore I will be working with Chief Executive and the Monitoring Officer to ensure that governance processes are established quickly, and I'm also keen to establish an all-party working group once more, as we did previously. Can I therefore ask that the group leaders provide me with names of 3 councillors from their groups over the next couple of days? It also gives me great pleasure, if I'm allowed Deputy Mayor, to thank everyone who has worked so hard on the Working Town Deal submission. Many of you will have heard already that we have been successful in our bid and we've been awarded £23.1 million for the projects in the town. This is absolutely fantastic news and means we can progress with plans for investment into the Port of Workington, the new Innovation Centre and Digital Skills Programme, improvements to the town's streetscape and also the community sports village plans. I very much look forward to updating you all on progress of these projects in the coming weeks and months.
Somebody tell me if I'm on.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Johnson. I think everybody wants a clap on the back for the 23.1 million. I think it's brilliant. We're going to move on now to item 9, portfolio holders updates. The time allowed for this item is 30 minutes. Councillor Johnson, please.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I move the portfolio holder reports as they are in the report and happy to take questions, Deputy Mayor.
Right, we'll start from the top, and it's economic growth, community development and placemaking. Portfolio holder is Councillor Johnson. Are there any questions, please? Oh. Councillor Little, please.
This isn't actually a question to the portfolio holder, it's to the Democratic Services. Why wasn't I given a telephone call to vote?
Councillor Little, as previously explained,
I can previously recall Councillor Daniels once got a telephone call to vote. So why was I denied the right to vote?
All members
by telephone.
All members were contacted, Councillor.
No, I was not. No, I wasn't.
Continue with the
No,
agenda. Are there questions for the portfolio holders?
Councillor Greenie, is
Yeah,
it a question for the portfolio holder?
I just want to know what's happened with the vote.
Councillor Johnson is the leader of the council.
So can I register my vote?
The monitor officer and the Democratic Services tried to contact you and you were unreturnable. So the vote went.
Councillors, please can we continue with the agenda item before us?
Councillor,
I'm asking if I can vote, that's all. I'm asking if I'm allowed to vote.
You're too late.
Reports.
Councillor Fairbrother.
Thank you. There's time for questions. I was going to ask Councillor Johnson about the items at 4.8 and 4.9, transforming public procurement and contract management. Can you give us some details on the proposed reforms to public procurement? Particularly, do they include references to how to safeguard against modern slavery and reducing our carbon footprint? I did actually send this question in advance. Don't know whether you received it.
Councillor Johnson.
Thank you, Councillor Fairbrother. Yes, I did receive it. Thank you very much. And I'll be able to provide you and all the councillors a full and detailed response to that question tomorrow. But the proposed changes specifically advise how to safeguard against incidents of modern slavery and reducing of the carbon footprint. But we, as previously stated, our procurement team have attended training on how to address both of these issues in the context of public procurement, and within the past year have included them as priority considerations within our procurement strategy. Additionally, the government's proposed changes to the procurement regime allow purchasers in certain circumstances to apply evaluation criteria that are not related to the subject matter of the contract. So basically, if we so wish, this could include criteria such as assessing a supplier's plans for achieving environmental targets across its operations, its record on prompt payment of subcontractors, or even its approach to safeguarding against the issue of modern slavery. Procurements over thresholds are now to be published on the find a tender service rather than the OJEU, the OJEU notice. We will continue to use the chest, which integrates with the new arrangements. Criteria in some procurements can be reserved, including supplier location, which we could use to ensure that local suppliers are awarded contracts to support local economic growth. I can go further, but I'm conscious of time that we've already had wasted this evening. So I'll happily respond in more detail tomorrow, if that's all right with you, Councillor Fairbrother.
Yes, thank you very much. I understand. Thank you.
Thank you, Janet. Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. Mike Johnson question. With the news of the Towns Fund, Mike, which is good news for the area, could you tell us what's happened about we did also apply, I believe, for Freeport status. What's happened about that, please?
Unfortunately, our Freeport status wasn't successful today. The Freeport status were announced today, and we weren't successful, unfortunately. Yeah, Councillor Smith. I look forward to receiving some feedback on why we didn't secure the Freeport status from ministers in the coming weeks.
That's disappointing, Mr. Leader. One of the reasons why I asked the question was that we tried to get a business park at Lily Hall, and we were thwarted by Carlisle. I also now see that there's vast investments over in the northeast for these buses for electric cars. Now that kind of thing is what we need over in West Cumbria. I just hope that the administration is pushing with our MP to get some meaningful industrial work over here, so that we can start competing with the likes of the northeast. And we have a port of Workington there now, which is going to be with much needed investment. I think that's what's needed now is to make sure that we have some kind of either a Freeport or a business park area was designated to attract businesses. And I think that's important now that we push with the MP to get this anomaly sorted out as soon as possible. Thank you, Mr. Leader. Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor.
Absolutely, Councillor Smith. We'll continue to work with our MP and ministers alike to secure whatever investment we can into the area to help us prosper and recover from this COVID pandemic.
Thank you. Councillor Kemp, please. You're on mute, George.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, lad.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Firstly, congratulations to Mr. Johnson, Mike Johnson. It's the questions to Mike Johnson. Congratulations to him on him gaining his maiden victory in any form of election. I think that's probably right. What I would like to go to 4.7, the Maryport Future High Street update. Great news of the, in principle, £11.5 million town centre regeneration. However, is Councillor Johnson aware of the impending closures of another 5 businesses in the High Street in Maryport? Sorry about that. In my opinion, the closure of the original factory shop, formerly the Woolworths store, which was the biggest store in Maryport, will be an absolute hammer blow for the town. Many businesses, especially in the hospitality sector, which I'm in myself, are absolutely under the cosh, and I fear for the future of a lot of the pubs in my town. It would be tragic if the regeneration works are completed with swathes of empty businesses. Can Councillor Johnson or Leader Johnson and his colleagues incentivise new businesses to locate to Maryport with the likes of the Tesco Express, which to me would be a boon for the centre of town? Because in my opinion, we'll be able to film cowboy films in Maryport shortly, because it's like an absolute ghost town. And if it wasn't for the likes of some really good businesses that's in the town keeping it afloat, I think the place might as well be closed for good. We've got some excellent businesses that's coming to Maryport, the new garage development and Lidl's, B&M's, and hopefully the Co-op in future. but we really need to look after our unique town centre because it is honestly becoming a bomb site. Thank you.
Thanks for the question, Councillor Kemp, and thank you for the congratulations too. Businesses are struggling, and there's real help and assistance that we're giving our local businesses. You will no doubt have seen the help and assistance provided by the Treasury just today, which we welcome. As an authority, we're helping businesses navigate through the lockdown measures in many ways. Not only have we administered millions of pounds in financial support, but we've done so in a way that has tried to automate the payment process as much as possible. The feedback we have received from local businesses has shown how much this has been appreciated. We have also devised discretionary schemes which provide funding as many types of businesses that would otherwise have fallen through the gaps of other schemes. It is continuing to be a challenging time for all businesses, not just retail and hospitality, although they are the ones that recently have suffered significantly. We will be working with shop owners and businesses to try and attract new business into those vacant premises in Maryport, because as you rightly say, 5 businesses shut in the town centre makes a big negative impact. And through the future high streets and the HAS funding that we've received, we intend to improve the shop frontage in Maryport, but we needn't bother doing that if we're not going to have shops for people to come and visit. So yes, we are and will continue to work with businesses and to try and attract other businesses into the town.
Councillor Kendall, thank you, Mike.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. I really don't know whether this is for Mike Johnson or for Tony Markley, but I'll ask it just the same. Just a big thanks to the controlling group. At long last, we met last week with Property Services, and the footpath extension to Flimby Cemetery is going to start in May. I do appreciate it. We will be welcomed by all people that are visiting sort of, that are bereaved to their loved ones' graves, etc. The big issue that I have got, one of the principal fast food providers in the town approached me the beginning of last week to say they went into lockdown the beginning of March. Their industrial commercial bin has a lock on it, so they were shut for the whole of March, right the way through to the beginning of September. And in recent weeks, they've had a bill for at least 11 pickups of commercial waste, when they've done as much as filled it 3 times. So they've been well overcharged for what Allerdale's cleansing services have taken. And my big concern is, after the meeting, I'll give the particular sort of fast food provider's name. But if this has happened in one case, I wonder how many other cases it's happened where fast food providers are being overcharged for collections that have never taken place. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kendall. I think that's for Tony, is it, Mike?
I think it perhaps, Deputy Mayor, it's a bit of a split. You're quite welcome, Councillor Kendall, and it's great news that the footway is getting remedied. As I think I'll probably answer on behalf of Councillor Markley, we will look into the issues where there's a suspicion that loads have been taken when they haven't. So we'll get officers to look at that in more detail if you can provide us with the information, please.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kendall. Thank you, Mike. We'll go to Environmental Service Portfolio. Tony Markley, please. Any questions? Councillor Lynch.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. Just on the grounds maintenance and street cleaning, Councillor Markley reports that there's a high standard of street cleanliness. I'm afraid this is not the case in Wigton. There has been a number of complaints about areas not being cleaned, and those have come to the town council. The town council have asked Tivoli on a number of occasions to actually give details of what their street cleaning contract for Wigton is, i.e. how often, where, etc. They're doing the cleaning, and that has not been forthcoming. So could I ask that Councillor Markley asks Tivoli to actually get in touch with the town council and inform them of what the contract is, because at the moment the streets in various areas of town are not being cleaned, and in fact local people are going around picking litter and, as I say, complaining to the town council.
Thank you, Councillor Lynch.
Thank you for bringing that to my attention, Councillor Lynch. I will ask officers to investigate that and ask Tivoli to be in touch with you, or our officers will get back in touch with you on that issue, because I mean we would not like that to be happening in any of the towns. We want to see the towns looking clean as possible. So I'll get them to investigate that and get back to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Markley. Councillor Ian Greeny, have you a question for Councillor Markley? Councillor Wilkinson?
Hello, can you hear me now?
Yeah, can hear you.
I can hear you, yeah. What it was, it's for Councillor Johnson. I'm just cutting out all the time. What it is, it's great news with regards to regeneration fund from Airport, with the high streets money and that type of thing. My concern mainly is around the actual transparency of the spending of that money, who is determining the spends of it, and where the money will be going and that type of thing. And I think it's extremely important we have as many Maryport people involved as possible. As you know, I managed to get onto the advisory group as a result of the last council meeting, but still there's very few Maryport people on there in terms of making the actual real decisions in terms of where and how and when the money will be spent on which projects, and also in terms of defining what will be done in terms of those projects. And I was just hoping for some confirmation that they will be included more going forward. I think it's very important.
Thank you for the question, Councillor Greedy. And as you rightly say, you're on the advisory group. And at that advisory group, we did state that there was 2 new groups to be set up, and we were looking at the terms of reference for engaging those groups, and how we would then look to engage with others to be on those groups. So yes, I can confirm that there will be more Maryport people involved across the board, including elected members, and we'll continue to review the terms of reference, and hopefully we'll be in a position either at the end of this week, if not the turn of next week, to call another meeting of the advisory group to confirm those terms of reference.
Thank you. Councillor Wilkinson.
Yeah, my question is to Councillor Markley. The contract that we have, I'm just going to hit on something that the respective member for Wigton was hitting on. The streets are not like your portfolio report, they're not very clean. The only reason they're getting cleaned is because it's been reported on the app. I've been very, very busy on the app reporting detritus, weeds. That's been there since last year. The contract that they have, Tivoli, they're also removing and have removed over 300 tonne of fly tipping from the old side area where gypsies, travellers, and also members of the public. So I'm not going to be accused of blaming any one person or any one type of person. They've also been fly tipping. The fly tipping's been happening throughout the whole of Allerdale. The council reception area at Moss Bay is closed. This is bringing extra work for Tivoli. And what I would like to know is this what they're doing part of their contract? Is it extra charges towards a contract? And would this extra work that they're doing, be at the detriment of cleaning the streets, what they're doing, because the streets are not clean. And I fully understand Tivoli are working very hard, they're very responsive, but they're too busy tied up with fly tipping, excessive fly tipping in certain areas to continue a street cleaning contract. Now, I was told it was a responsive contract, and the responsive contract, as I understand it, is you report it, you clean it. So is there any cleaning getting done, or do we have to report it? And how much is it costing us extra for the extra fly tipping by the travelling community and other people on the old side estate as well as others?
Thank you for the question, Councillor Wilkinson. As you're quite correct there, I mean, as I said before in the last question, that we'll investigate the street cleaning if there's issues on that, and which I don't think there is, but we'll have to look at that. The actual stuff on the old side, the cleaning there has been done and it will be cleaned up. I don't have a price on that, and I'm not sure if the price is available, but it will be. Yeah, you're quite correct. There's a lot of tipping being done down there, and we put out a new leaflet out now asking people how to do more recycling, etc., etc. And the app is the quite correct place to report all these things, and Tivoli will react as soon as they get it on the app. But when there's major issues and incidents such as down at Old Side, they also come in and clean those up as well. So they're actually covering both things. You know, the actual streets do not get left because they're doing that additional work. So it's all taken care of in the contract. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor McCarran-Holmes, please.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. Can I ask that an investigation be incepted regarding the increasing number of broken paper bin lids on the blue paper receptacle? It appears to me that there is some sort of problem with the machine, because it's just half of the lid is smashed on them all, and it must now be going well into our budget now with the costs. Can I ask that an investigation be instigated?
Thank you.
Thank you for the question, Councillor Holmes. Definitely, it is an issue that we're having, and they're actually undergoing legal with the company involved with the blue bins. It's the blue bin lids, that's the main thing, and we have actually fitted a lot of blue bids, and the company being up and fitting blue bin lids as well. But we do know it's an issue, and we are aware of it, and we are resourcing it through the legal channels, and officers are looking into it. So thank you for bringing it to our attention.
Thank you. Councillor Kemp, please.
Another question for Councillor Tony Markley. Sorry about that, Tony, but some of it's already been covered, but never mind, I'll go over it. I may often be criticised by some of Councillor Markley's colleagues, especially in Silleth, for being negative. You know, they obviously don't know me very well, but never mind. Councillor Markley, you state in your report that street cleansing by our contractors Tivoli is being carried out to a very high standard. Well, I actually have to agree with you. I have to say, I totally agree with Councillor Markley's comments, and I commend Tivoli for the excellent work carried out, especially in the Maryport North Ward. Early herbicide treatment last year of pavements and paved areas made an enormous difference last year. This, coupled with probably in Maryport, I think we've probably got the best road sweeper in Britain, and I think this guy should be highly commended. However, is Councillor Markley aware of the huge strain Tivoli are under fulfilling a decent standard of street cleansing in other areas, mainly the working area? It is no secret that Tivoli are having to remove hundreds of tons of fly tipping from areas like Old Side, and some areas of street cleansing in working are being sadly neglected. Personally, I feel sorry for Tivoli, who are obviously under massive pressure to keep our streets clean, and the resources are being stretched by having to clean up rubbish that is dumped illegally by many of the travelling fraternity. And I think, to be honest with you, a lot of them are running illegal businesses and compete with some of our proper businesses in the area unfairly because they don't have to spend money on tipping rubbish, i.e. trees and tarmac and stuff like that. Can I call on Councillor Markley to support this company, i.e. Tivoli, and also step up the enforcement on places like Allside? Finally, can he promise me to visit Allside and witness himself the scale of the enormous problems? I was on there a fortnight ago, Councillor Markley, and it was like a war zone. Burning cable, plastic, all sorts of, you could have filmed Armageddon on there. It was absolutely scandalous. And I think it's about time this council sorted the problem on Allside out, because it's easy to see who are the main culprits, mostly the travelling fraternity. Can he please sort it out and help this company Tivoli, who I honestly think are doing a fantastic job. Thank you.
Thank you for bringing that to our attention, Councillor Kemp, and asking the question. Yes, I'm well aware of the Allside issue. I've been down myself just last week, and I'm about to go down this week as well, just to see what's happening. It is immensely bad, and we do know that. And I think Tivoli are doing a marvellous job, and all our contractors are doing a marvellous job to try to keep our streets clean. It is severe, and we will be monitoring it. And we are looking at security measures to put down there to monitor it, to see what can be gauged on. So I can definitely assure you that we are aware of it, and we will definitely keep looking into it. Thanks, George.
Thank you. As time's moving on, can we keep our questions brief, please, because we're running out of time. Councillor Martin.
Thank you very much, Mr. Deputy Mayor. I would just like to ask Tony if you could send a letter of thanks to our road sweeper in Silloth, Philip Irvin, who's just undergone surgery, unfortunately, for a broken neck. I'm not sure if everybody's aware of Philip, but he's been sweeping the streets of Silloth for 25 years now and keeping them immaculate. Now, unfortunately, they did think at first he'd had a stroke. Then he went to get a scan. They found out he had a broken neck. He had gone to work with a broken neck for a few days, dragging his foot round. He'd done an absolutely amazing job of keeping going through all this pandemic, and then to suddenly be disabled like this, I just think he needs to be commended for his excellent work, and a thank you, and get well soon from the whole council. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for that, Councillor Martin. Yes, definitely. I was aware there was an issue with Philip. I didn't realise the severity of it, and I think I will ask our council officers to instruct a letter to Tivoli, because in all fairness, Silloth streets are impeccably clean by that gentleman. He's been to London. He's done the garden party and all those sort of things. He's been awarded that. He's extremely valuable to Silloth and to Tivoli. So yes, I think we shall ask the officer to send a get well message to him. Thank you.
Thank you, Tony. We have 3 minutes left on this debate. So, Councillor Little, can you keep your question brief, please?
Yes, thank you, Malcolm. This is for Councillor Fitzgerald. Could you please ask Housing Options team to give me an update on the number of homelessness in Allerdale, please, with your paragraphs, section 0.5, Cumbria Housing Group? Because I still notice a lot of homeless people are on the streets in Allerdale. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter.
Yes, Councillor Little, I can certainly do that for you. I can tell you that the Get Everyone In campaign was very successful. Accommodation was found for everybody who presented. As you will appreciate, though, there are some occasions where even when accommodation is found, individual choices are made, and people don't necessarily choose to stay indoors, but so far the campaign has been very successful indeed. But I will get you those figures.
Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you, Marion.
Thank you, Peter. As we have run over our allotted time to answer these questions, or any questions from the portfolio members, the portfolio members will reply by mail if they are so required. Now we'll move on now. In accordance with the local authorities regulations 2014 and Allerdale Borough Council's constitution, we will hold a recorded vote on the agendas items 10 and 11 in line with the regulations. Item 10, reference from the executive 24th of the 2nd, 21 is the budget 2021-22, revenue and capital. Councillor Lister, please.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I made a note of my briefing note this morning that this could be out of date because of the budget that's happened today, and some of it is out of date, but the nuts and bolts are still correct. And as you know, March is a particularly difficult month to make financial predictions, along with all the other 11 months. But anyway, I'll go through what we've got. As I say, the nuts and bolts of it are still very relevant. So the budget proposals include the revenue budget for 21-22 and the 3-year capital budget for 21-22 and through to 23-24. The report also includes the outcome of the budget consultation exercise and the report from the Chief Finance Officer, the S151 officer, on the robustness of the estimates and the adequacy of the reserves. And as you can see in the recommendations, the net budget requirement for 21-22, including parish precepts, is 2.567162 million. And that's the parish, and it's proposed to be 15.879831 million. This represents an increase over the adjusted 2021 budget of £924,000. This is mainly attributable to one-off items required to address the impacts of COVID-19 on our rental income from economic development and from the need to set aside costs to deal with the need to restructure the council and prepare for the potential implications to arise from local government reorganisation. It does also allow for growth to address our priorities and for the recovery we will need as we hopefully emerge out of the global pandemic that has impacted us all so significantly over the past 12 months. In section 4, we undertook a consultation exercise between December and January. This summarised the financial challenges we face and the steps being taken to bridge the financial gap that has arisen due to the unprecedented reductions in central government grants. The key messages from this exercise were that most respondents were in favour with 3/4 of the options presented, including using our land and buildings to generate income, making more efficient use of our assets, and sharing services with other councils and public agencies. Number 2, most respondents did not agree with either reducing the quality of our services or transferring our services to other organisations like commercial companies. And the majority, 60% of respondents, supported an increase in council tax of £5 a year on a Band D property. In section 5, the conclusions of the 1-year spending review 2020 were presented to Parliament on the 25th of November. This prioritised funding across 3 key areas: to support the government's response to COVID-19, investing in the UK's recovery for all regions of the UK, with a particular emphasis on capital spending, and delivering on promises to the British people, including cash increases to the NHS, increasing schools budget, and additional police officers. Specific announcements included in the 2020 spending review and of direct relevant to local government include, and if you see 514, page 39 and onwards for details, an increase in revenue support grant in line with inflation, maintaining the existing new homes bonus scheme for a further year with no legacy payments, providing additional funding to local authorities to meet additional expenditure pressures because of COVID, providing additional grant to help local authorities support households that are least able to afford council tax payments, to compensate local authorities for 75% of irrecoverable loss to council tax and business rates revenues in 2021 that would otherwise need to be funded through local authority budgets, and providing additional funding for rough sleepers and those at risk of homelessness during COVID-19. And further key announcements relevant to local authorities such as Allerdale are freezing a business rates multiplier for 21-22 and compensating local authorities. The implementation of changes to the PWLB's lending terms, meaning that PWLB will no longer lend to local authorities that plan to buy commercial assets primarily for yield, and the introduction of £4 billion of Levelling Up Fund to invest in local infrastructure projects and pausing pay increases within the public sector, apart from the NHS workers and those earning less than 24k. To allow local authorities to focus on meeting the immediate public health challenges posed by the pandemic, it was announced that proposed changes to business rates retention and the fair funding review would not be implemented in 21-22. The government has announced that it will conduct a fundamental review of business rates system and is currently considering responses to the call for evidence. We will have to await the outcomes of this and the impact it will have on us. So local government finance settlement, the provisional local government finance settlement announced in December, the final settlement was released on 4th of February this year. The settlement outlines the SFA, which compromises revenue support grant, retained business rates income, and the government's assessment of core spending power. Core spending power is the government's measure of the core component of local government funding and comprises the aggregate of the SFA, assumed income from council tax, new homes bonus, rural services delivery grant, and a new lower services grant. Nationally, the government figures indicate the core spending power will, in cash terms, increase by 4.5%. And importantly, this is based on the assumption that every council will raise their council tax by the maximum permitted, and that their growth in council tax base remains consistent with the last 5 years. However, the figures for Allerdale indicate a reduction of 9.6%, and this is because our SFA has fallen by 2 million, and other grants receivable have fallen by £240,000. And this has only been offset by an increase in council tax income of 1.1 million. Revenue support grant has fallen by over 90% since 2015-16, whilst increases in baseline funding of business rates retention have typically only increased in line with inflation. The reductions in RSG, which underpin the reduction in the settlement funding assessment, were originally timetabled to coincide with the planned transition to 100% rates retention in 1920. This was paused in 2017 due to the snap election, which meant that changes to the primary legislation were not possible. In 1920, the government announced its intention to move from a 100% retention scheme to 75% retention scheme in 2021. And this has been further delayed, and we have no further update to date. So in section 6, page 41 on, there are several resources available to fund the council's net revenue budget, and these are central government grants, business rates retention scheme, council tax, income from fees and charges, interest, and investment income. The main forms of central government support are from the RSG, that's the revenue support grant, rural services delivery grant, which is a grant in recognition of the extra costs of delivering public services in a sparsely populated area, the new homes bonus grant, lower tier services grant, which is a new one-year grant that recognises the current exceptional circumstances of delivering our services during the pandemic, COVID pressure grant, and this is an extension of the funding allocated to us to respond to the issues arising from the pandemic, and another new grant to deal with local council tax support and other help to economically vulnerable households during the pandemic. So moving on to the business rates income, that's on 6-18, page 45. And under the current business rates retention scheme, 40% of business rates collected are retained by our council, with the remainder paid to central government, 50%, and the county council get 10%. The system of top-ups and tariffs ensures that the council's share of estimated business rates income does not exceed the level of funding to be provided through the rates retention scheme. The estimated of business rates income available is based on an estimate made in January through a government return known as the NNDR1. This also considers estimated losses due to appeals and expected council collection rates. As part of the business rates scheme, councils have the option of working with neighbouring authorities to seek formal designation as a pool, which is treated as a single authority for the purpose of certain calculations under the scheme. This provides the opportunity to increase the amount of growth in a local share retained locally. It also provides scope to manage the impact of volatility in the rates income across a wider economic area. So for 21-22, we, along with the 5 other district councils and the county council, have reached a collective decision to continue with the Cumbria pool. The net total income from business rates available to fund the budget next year is estimated at 5.622 million. And if you see table 4 and 5 on page 47 and 49. So the council tax, moving on to that, just excuse me a sec. The council could set any level of tax increases, but it must hold a council tax referendum if this is above a certain limit. For 2021, the limit was set as previous years, i.e. a district council can increase its council tax by up to 2% or up to £5, whichever is the higher. This budget proposes that the council tax is increased by £5 for a Band D property. And this is supported by most responses from the budget consultation exercise. We're acutely aware that this is an additional burden on households, but as with all public services, the council is under pressure financially and needs to protect vital services it provides, particularly those which are doing so much to support the community during this pandemic. For those households that are struggling to pay their council tax, we have a range of support on offer. And this includes our localised council tax support scheme, which provides 100% support to households on low incomes. So the Allerdale Revenue Budget, section 7, page 52. The council set out its approach to prepare this budget in a budget strategy report that was presented to the executive back in November last year. This budget has been developed during the middle of the worldwide pandemic, which is continuing to have significant impacts on service delivery and our finances. The key deliverables for next year are to prioritise delivery of the council strategy and address the impacts of COVID-19 on our financial position. Details of the recurring, non-recurring bids are set out in the tables of the report. Supporting bids are those that best fit the council's aims and priorities, and those that provide some focus of our recovery as we aim to see the restrictions lift and life start to return to some form of normality. So section 8, page 7, resources available to finance capital expenditure come from grants and contributions from third parties, capital receipts from sales of assets, direct funding from revenue, and borrowing requirements. The capital programme is mainly focused around the delivery of the Maryport Future High Streets Fund and the anticipated announcement regarding Workington Town Investment Fund. As you know, that is now been successful. So the section 9, the budget assurance statement from the Chief Financial Officer. This section is required under the S25 of the Local Government Act 2003 and places a duty on the CFO to make a report on the robustness of the budget estimates and the adequacy of the council's reserve. This report acknowledges the different circumstances that these estimates have been developed during and that the impacts are likely to be felt sometime to come. However, the CFO's view is that the budget proposals do represent the most accurate position available at the time, and a robust process has been followed in producing the estimates. The report also sets out the importance, particularly in these difficult times, of maintaining adequate levels of reserves, as these provide a cushion to deal with unknown or unforeseen events. The budget for 2021 needs to draw on general fund reserves, and the medium-term position indicates that there will be a budget deficit position in 2022 and 23. Without successful plans to address this difficulty, there will be a need to draw on reserves, and these will fall below the minimum balance by the end of 2023 and be fully utilised by 24. So to conclude, it's likely that in the current circumstances, next year is likely to be another unusual financial year, and that is the short term in its outlook. Our key focus over the next 12 months will be to manage the impact of COVID has had and will continue to have on our finances, and ensure that we build this understanding into our future projections. Economic regeneration and place shaping around our key towns, villages and businesses will be key to how we recover from the ongoing restrictions. This will ensure that this council is organised and ready to meet the challenges that lie ahead, I very much hope. I move the recommendation of the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lister, for that rather long-winded bit. I'd like to call, have you a seconder for your speech, please?
I'd like to second it, Deputy Mayor, if that's okay with you, and
thank you.
Have a few comments to support that, if I'm allowed to do that just now.
Yeah, that's fine, because yeah, carry on.
Thank you. Firstly, congratulations to Jim for delivering that report. I'd like to thank everyone for the work done to produce this balanced budget. As I said at the executive meeting last week, this has been an extraordinary year for everyone. Our finance team had to handle the impact of the pandemic on our finances, as well as helping to administer the business grants scheme and pay out millions of pounds of support to local businesses. I'd also like to reiterate my thanks to those members of the public who took time to respond to the consultation. As an administration, we are genuinely keen to engage with our local community in these decisions. It's vital that we spend public money as effectively and efficiently as possible. And so I agree with many of the respondents who said that we should look for efficiencies within our services and make effective use of our an asset. But I accept that this challenge is becoming increasingly difficult. It's something that's important to this administration, and we have prioritised it in our long-term council strategy. We will also seek to work more effectively with our partners, which I also note was a key priority for many. Many people will focus on the proposal to raise council tax in our budget. Our proposed £5 a year increase for a Band D property equates to just under 10 pence a week. The rise for lower bands is even less. Our council tax also remains the lowest for all Cumbrian district councils. With this, we can continue to provide the services and the investment that our communities expect. It also means we can continue to help our most vulnerable residents, as well as support local businesses. I recognise that many people are struggling financially with the ongoing pandemic, which is why I would encourage people to access the specialist advice that's out there. But our budget is also about investment in our communities. It includes capital for much needed housing in Keswick and investment into Maryport through the Future High Street initiative. And I'm really pleased that the money we're receiving from government will be going towards the major projects under the scheme, such as the creation of the new covered market, redevelopment of key buildings such as the former Carlton Cinema and Christchurch, as well as redevelopment of the Wave Centre. And of course, we have heard news today of the further 23.1 million investment into Workington through the town deal. We acknowledge that the budgeting is just a little bit harder for everyone at the moment, whether it be a business community, individual households, or even the council. But we firmly believe that if we invest in our council strategy, then we can expedite our recovery from the pandemic This budget lays the foundations for this council to play our part in that recovery, and that's the reasons why I second this this budget. Thank you.
It's open for debate now, and the first in line is Councillor Lansbury. Can you keep your questions just debate, please? Councillor Lansbury.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I was hoping Councillor Lister could tell us a little more about the vertical farm as part of the capital bid 8.16. 5,500,000 pounds, so 5.5 million, I guess, is the cost of that. I was hoping to find out how many jobs we thought could be to be created as a result of that, and a little bit more information, because it sounds like a fantastic project, but I'm not sure that many of us are very aware of what's going on there. So it would be nice to hear some more on that.
It's all right for me to speak, Mayor?
It is, Councillor.
Unfortunately, it appears as if the vertical farm is not going to go ahead. I can give you more details possibly tomorrow, but at the moment it's not looking as if that bid has worked. So we're just going to have to be very grateful for what we have got. Hope that helps.
Thank you, Councillor.
What was the reason for the bid not being successful?
Apologies, Deputy Mayor. This is a debate. It's not a question and answer session.
All right. Thank you.
Councillor Lister will respond to any queries at a later date. If it's just
right. So we'll go now to Councillor Little.
Thank you, Chair. The reason I'm saying is because I want to object to any increase in council tax.
Well, Peter, it isn't the council tax at the moment. It's a general. It's the budget.
The budget falls into the council tax. Council tax falls into the budget. Sorry.
That's the next one. That's the next item,
Right.
Peter.
I'll wait. Sorry.
Thank you. Well done, lad. Thank you. Councillor Fitzgerald.
Yeah, thank you, Deputy Mayor. It's not been the easiest budget. I've looked at it in great detail. It was never going to be an easy one, was it? Because of the impact of COVID-19 and also the pressures that the council has been under in terms of the launch of the new waste company, because that company was born at the very start of the first lockdown, you'll remember. So it hasn't been easy. But I think we need to be mindful of the fact that there are other local authorities who are really in a desperate situation now. And I think that the officers in this council really deserve our thanks for all of the hard work that they've done during this most difficult of years. And all of that has contributed to our being able to put forward to you this evening budget proposals that are realistic, that are strong, and that they are sensible. And I'd like to say particularly thank you to our Section 151 officer who has helped us to achieve this. So I'm very proud of these budget proposals, and I'm very happy to support them. So far as the vertical farm is concerned, I believe we are still in discussions with the LEP, Councillor Lansbury, if that helps. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Fitzgerald. Peter, Councillor Little, you can bring your motion, your debate forward now.
I can bring my debate forward.
Yeah.
It was just to object about council tax increase. I object to it fully, simply because if you cast your minds back, at the last meeting, every member of this council unanimously voted against an increase in council allowances, simply because of the fact that people in this borough are financially burdened. We know it's only a small proportion of a rise, but we're still penalising the same people. We know it's a business that Allerdale's got to run, but it's had money thrown at it left, right and centre of central government. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you.
I'll just sort of draw your attention to the fact that if you look on page 104, then you'll see that our £5 is actually going to be a 2.86% rise. The next line down, you'll see that Cumbria County Council is putting up the percentage by almost 3.99%, and the Police and Crime Commissioner putting theirs up, and the parishes are putting theirs up by 4.49, which is larger than anybody else. Okay, their proportion is smaller, but it's going up. The County Council are managing to put £10 million into their reserves. We are having to use our reserves to balance the books. Now, if you want to bankrupt the council, that's grand. We won't have we need to put it up and we'll just run the place into the ground. Alternatively, we can use our reserves, which we consider prudently. Whereas, as I say, there's another council, the county council, who are actually taking money off us all to put into their reserves. Now, go figure if you wish.
I'll have to, at this point, tell you, ladies and gentlemen, that it is not a question and answer this. This is a debate, not a question and answer. Whatever you say will not be answered by Councillor Lister. Thank you. Councillor Wilkinson, please.
Yeah, I'd just like to point attention to page 97. The consultation, there's only been 88 responses. I wouldn't hazard a guess at the 0.000% of the people that have been asked or have responded to this. And to be honest with you, when you try and read this to the common man on the street, it's not the easiest document to read. And I would like there to be changes to these budget consultation documents to make them more easier for the public to understand, and maybe you would get a better response from the public. I can't see here where 6 people out of 20 people can say that they would like to see the poll tax put up as being an indicator of put your poll tax up. Because nowhere in the world am I going to vote for a poll tax increase. I stated in my manifesto that I would not allow or vote for a poll tax increase whilst services are being cut or anything else. For the last 12 months, services are being closed down and this council has made no savings. We've had a deputy leader on leadership wages. We've had a chief executive who's had a large hike in wages. This is management. Manage the budget better, is all I say. Instead of giving money away. We have GLL who received £40,000 of taxpayers' money, and now you're asking the public to pay more. That, to me, is shocking. Absolutely shocking. You're paying a multinational company a grant that have had millions out of the government, and you're still handing over taxpayers out of Allerdale, their hard-earned cash, to a multinational company. It's wrong. It's absolutely wrong, and nowhere will I vote for any increase in council tax whilst we're handing money away like that.
Thank you, Councillor Wilkinson. Councillor Markley, please.
Thank you very much for that, Deputy Mayor. Yes, interesting debate. I would just like to, first of all, thank the team, the Allerdale finance team, for being able to put this budget together efficiently, properly, and really, really good and under good governance. Also being able to distribute millions of pounds out to support businesses and people during this pandemic. I think it's been absolutely fantastic. And to only be able to put the council tax up by £5 is absolutely unbelievable to be able to do that. Council List has elaborated on what other councils have done, which I think is extremely, well, I just don't agree with it, but there you go. I think what we've done, being able to use our reserves, that's what they're there for, but being still being able to maintain the level of reserves. And, you know, if people can't understand the documents, I can't help that. I mean, documents are there today. I think they're very easy to be led. And having, I don't know what, I think Councillor Wilkinson said 88. A lot of consultations don't get anything back off people. So actually 88 is probably a fairly high number. So I think the public are out there, and that's just what it is. So again, I'd just like to congratulate you being able to put this budget together and being able to get a fair deal for the people of Allerdale. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Markley. Councillor Greenie, please.
Yes, Chair. Thank you, Chair. It actually coincides what Tony Markley was just saying about easy to understand. Page 80, with regards to sports and leisure centres, we've got a number in there. It's quite a large number, 574,920. And then below that, we've got the wave at 184. In my calculation, that means, in terms of sports and leisure centres, that means we're paying 574 to subsidise Cockermouth, Keswick and Workington. And I think my concern is, I've asked for a breakdown of these numbers over the last 2 to 3 months, and nothing's been coming forward in terms of determining exactly what the breakdown of that 574 number is in terms of allocation to the various sports centres. That's a bit of a concern in terms of, you know, what we're actually producing as a form that people can understand. We've got so many, I think we've got several sports and leisure centres grouped together, and then we've got one identified standout on its own. And I don't think that's right, because I think it gives a false impression that the Medport wave is an issue. But when you look at it into context and the 574 spread across the other three leisure centres, that equates to 190,000 each. And as I've said, I've been asking for this breakdown for quite a considerable time, and not getting it isn't building me with much confidence, to be honest. And I'd just like to state that. And I think it should be broken down a bit more evenly, so we can actually see what is happening to that, you know, large number at 574. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Greenie. Thank you. Councillor Fairbrother, please.
Thank you. First of all, Jim, thanks for your, I wouldn't call it long-winded. I think it was a pretty good praise of a very long and complicated report. I would just like to come back to the council tax debate, coming back to 642 through to 644. It's quite clear that we don't have much control or spending power when it comes to the council tax, because councils like the local county council have responsibility for adult social care, and they have to raise that enough money in order to provide adult social care, which we know is in crisis, and takes a lot of spending. And then there's the police and crime commissioner that also take a large chunk. And in fact, I think we only get, as it says on 644, we only get a very small amount of the council tax. So to say that we're taking money from the people of Allerdale, we're not taking it for Allerdale, it's to pay for adult social care through the county council and the police and crime commissioner mostly, which is described in the report. And Councillor Wilkinson, I don't know what multinational company he's referring to. We discussed at the last council meeting, I think it's called Greenwich Leisure, who run the sports centre at Workington and other sports centres in Allerdale. It's a social enterprise company. It's not a multinational. I think that was pointed out at the last council meeting. Just wanted to correct that reference. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Fairbrother. The last on the list is Councillor Pritchard, please. Pritchard.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. I'd like to commend Jim on his detailed reading of the budgets, and also commend Catherine for the way she's put. It's very comprehensive, and it does cover everything that we need to cover. I'd like to point out to some people, at some stage last year during the height of COVID, some councillors wanted free car parks for the residents. Some councillors wanted rent freezes for the residents. They also wanted council tax reductions or cancellations completely. And they wanted all sorts of free things thrown at everybody to get us through COVID, despite the government giving the council money to be able to I was going to say dish out, but dish out to the various people that needed it, the people who really needed it. If we'd have gone down those paths, our reserves would have been even lower and would have been even deeper in trouble. So I think this is a well-defined and concise budget. And as much as it grieves me to see it go up by £5 per council deed property, I think it is a necessity. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Pritchard. Now the last
Deputy Mayor, sorry.
The last before we go to the vote is Councillor Cook.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. As an executive member of the council, I've got to say that there was a lot of hard decisions to make around this budget, and we sent the officers away quite a few times to tell them to come back to us with a better budget. And to be honest, I think this is the best we could get out of it. So I recommend this budget myself, because it's been a lot of hard work coming up to this point, and it safeguards the future of the borough. Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you very much. I think a lot of work's gone into this, and a lot of thanks and credit wants to go to Councillor Lister and all his team, Catherine, and because it's really exceptional. I now hand over to Gail for the vote, please.
Thank you. Councillors, when I call your name, can you please vote whether you're for, against, or you abstain? Councillor Anderson?
Councillor Anderson, for the motion.
Councillor Bainbridge?
For the motion.
Councillor Bell?
For the motion.
Councillor Campbell-Savers?
For.
Councillor Cook?
For.
Councillor Crouch?
For the motion.
Councillor Daniels?
For the motion.
Councillor Fairbrother?
For the motion.
Councillor Fitzgerald?
For the motion.
Councillor Granger?
For the motion.
Councillor Greenie?
That's gone again.
I'll come back. Councillor Heasley?
For.
Councillor Hedworth?
For the motion.
Councillor Hodgson?
For the motion.
Councillor Horsley?
Abstain.
Councillor Johnson?
For.
Councillor King?
Against.
Councillor Kendall?
For.
Councillor King?
Abstain.
Councillor Kirkbride?
Jane.
Councillor Lansbury?
For the motion.
Councillor Lister?
For the motion.
Councillor Little?
Abstain.
Councillor Lynch?
For.
Councillor Maguire?
For.
Councillor Markley?
In favour of the motion.
Councillor Martin?
For.
Councillor McCarran Holmes?
For.
Councillor Mumby?
For.
Councillor Pitcher?
For.
Councillor Semple?
For.
Councillor Smith?
For.
Councillor Tyson?
Councillor Tyson, for.
Councillor Wilkinson?
Against.
And I'll just return to Councillor Greenie.
Can you hear me?
Can you hear me, Councillor?
Yeah.
Sorry.
On the grounds of poor transparency, abstain.
Thank you. Just bear with me a second, please.
I'm out of this. It's this. Yeah. I want to go up there to.
Deputy Mayor, you have 27 votes in favour, 3 against and 4 abstentions. Thank you.
The motion is carried. Now, item 11, the council
Mr.
tax.
Mayor, Mr. Mayor, can I give my apologies now that I
You may,
mentioned
sir.
it before?
You may,
I
Councillor
cannot sit in this. Okay.
You take care of yourself. That's a lad.
Okay. Thanks very much. Bye bye.
Have a good night, Ron. Good night. Thank you.
Bye bye. Bye bye.
The council tax resolution report of 2021 to 22. Councillor Lister, please.
Yeah, this is rather shorter than the last one. It's some paper exercise, if you like. And the purpose of this report is to approve the council tax requirements for Allerdale Borough Council for 2021-22 as set out in Appendix A. And this is based on the 21-22 budget figures, and this is necessary to set 2021-22 council tax for the Allerdale area. And this calculation is undertaken as a requirement by legislation. As required by legislation, the figures shown in this report are based on the charges before discounts which are applied when the bills are processed. And the precepting bodies are Allerdale Borough Council, which is also the billing authority for a number of other bodies. That's the Town and Parish Councils, Cumbria County Council, and the Police and Crime Commissioner for Cumbria. And these bodies set their own council tax levels, which is then billed and collected by Allerdale Borough Council. So the recommendation is that the resolutions as set out in Appendix A are approved. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lister. Have you got a seconder? Oh no, wait a minute. Have you got a seconder, please?
I'll second that, Mr. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Pritchard. The motion is now open for debate. No, right. I can now hand over to Gail. There's no questions, no debate. So I now hand over to Gail for the vote.
Thank you. Same again, please, councillors. 4 against or abstain. Councillor Annison.
Councillor Annison for the motion.
Councillor Bainbridge.
4.
Councillor Bell.
4.
Councillor Campbell-Savers.
4.
Councillor Cook.
4.
Councillor Crouch.
4.
Councillor Daniels.
4.
Councillor Fairbrother.
4.
Councillor Fitzgerald.
For the motion.
Councillor Granger.
For the motion.
Councillor Greenie.
Against.
Councillor Heaslip.
4.
Councillor Hedworth.
4.
Councillor Hodgson.
Oh,
Councillor Horsley.
abstain.
Councillor Johnson.
4.
Councillor Kemp.
Against.
Councillor Kendall.
4.
Councillor King.
Abstain.
Sorry, councillor, was that abstain?
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Kirkbride.
Abstain.
Councillor Lansbury.
For the motion, thank you.
Councillor Lister.
For the motion.
Councillor Little.
Against.
Councillor Lynch,
For.
Councillor Maguire,
For.
Councillor Markley,
In favour of the motion.
Councillor Martin,
For.
Councillor Karen Holmes,
For.
Councillor Pitcher,
For.
Councillor Semple,
For.
Councillor Smith,
For.
Councillor Tyson,
For.
and Councillor Wilkinson.
Against.
Thank you. Again, one more.
Right. Which was not good. Make a better cup of tea.
Deputy Mayor, the votes are 26 in favour, 4 against and 3 abstentions.
Thank you, Gail. The motion is carried. Thank you. Item 12. It's up to you, Jim, again. Reference from the exec, 24th of 2nd, 21, Capital Investment Strategy, 2021 to 22. Council Lister, please.
Not going to bore you. I'm just going to move the recommendation that the capital investment strategy is approved.
Have you got a seconder, please?
I'd like to second that, Deputy
Thank you, Councillor.
Mayor. If I may give reasons of why I would do that, please.
You may.
I'm pleased to speak in support of this capital strategy this evening. Our capital programme will play a key role in ensuring that we make the right investments into the right areas, whilst making sure that we live within our means as a council. The delivery of this strategy will help unlock schemes that will have significant local economic impact. I've already mentioned the regeneration programmes in Workington and Maryport, but there will also be continued social impact with investments such as the conversion of the Otley Road properties, providing much needed housing in Keswick. Our capital programme for the coming year is extensive. It's wide ranging, and I look forward to monitoring what I hope will be a significant impact for our community. Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Johnson. The motion is now open for debate. Councillor Greenie, please.
Thank you, Chair. My hand was raised prior to this item on the agenda, and it isn't for this debate. It's a point of order for the monitoring officer. Am I okay to continue, Chair?
Yes.
Thank you. The point of order is with regard to the motion to elect a new leader, and I believe it was submitted outside the rules of the Constitution of Allerdale Borough Council, in specifically to point 4.18, motions of notice, and with specific note to 4.18.1 notice. And I will refer you to that motion. Unless the Mayor is of the opinion that a motion should be considered as a matter of urgency, except for motions which can be moved without notice under Rule 4.19, written notice of every motion signed by at least one member must be delivered to the Chief Executive or the Monitoring Officer not later than 8 clear working days before the Council meeting at which it is to be considered. A motion shall only be considered as a matter of urgency if any delay is likely to be caused by the requirement not to give less than 8 working days, notice, and this is the key part, would seriously prejudice the council's or the public's interest. The minutes of the council shall specify the grounds upon which the motion is considered urgent. I believe that motion was not considered urgent and was accepted on political grounds rather than serious prejudice to the council or the public's interest. and I would like it struck from the record on that basis. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Greene. I did explain at the start, I mentioned procedural rule 4.18.1 and the relevant legislation too. And I also explained that the Mayor had considered that procedural rule and considered the Deputy Mayor, apologies, the Deputy Mayor considered that there were reasons that justified it to be considered as an urgent motion. Therefore, it was correct and it was within the procedure to continue. Thank you.
Now we'll return to the debate. Councillor Wilkinson, please.
At the debate, I put my hand up to second Councillor Greeny's motion. And the reason for that is we've gone 10 months without a leader. We have attempted to have a leadership challenge, which was beaten. There was no urgency then to appoint a leader. So I cannot see, Mr. Chairman, why, because members were missing from this meeting and the vote come in your favour, that is an emergency for you to appoint a leader and steal this democratically elected council. So I would like to second that motion, and I want to put on record that I have seconded that motion because I do not recognise what has happened and I do not like it.
Councillor Wilkinson, there is no motion on the floor. It was a point of order. I've dealt with the point of order. We will now continue with the item. Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor.
Can we now return to Councillor Wilkinson, please?
The procedural letters have gone on through this meeting. And I think the legal counsel
will be dealt with outside of the meeting. Please continue.
And
we'll now continue with item 12.
And
references from exec. Capital Investment Strategy 2021. Councillor Lister, please.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I would just like to move the recommendations on page 162.2. This is recommended. Members approve A, the proposed Treasury Management Strategy Statement and Investment Strategy for 21-22, included in sections.
Councillor Lister.
Yes.
We're still on item 12. It's been moved.
Oh, I did beg your pardon.
It's been moved, it's been seconded. I will now assume that all members are in agreement with the motion unless they indicate it. If they wish to speak, can members please indicate now? Councillor Heaslop. Councillor Heaslop.
Sorry, Mr. Deputy Mayor. I thought you'd gone up to item 13. My hands up for item 13.
Right, thank you. We'll go on to item 13 now then, please. The motion is carried on 12.
Are we now on to 13? Sorry, Chair.
Item 13, reference from Audit Committee, 25th to the 2nd, 21. Treasury Management Strategy Statement, Annual Investment Strategy, the Minimum Revenue Provision Policy Statement 2021 to 22. Councillor Tyson, please.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. I'd like to recommend members approve the proposed TMSS and Investment Strategy Statement for 2021-22. Which is actually section 2 and 3 of appendix 1. The MRP policy statements, the minimum revenues provision statements set out in section 4 of appendix 1, and the prudential and treasury indicators, including the council's authorised borrowing limits, set out in section 5 of appendix 1.
Thank you, Councillor Tyson. Have you a seconder for that, please?
I would like to second that, please, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Bainbridge. The motion is now open for debate. Councillor Johnson, please.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I would like to add my thanks to everyone who's worked so hard to devise these documents and strategies. I would also like to endorse the contents of the report and our prudent approach to borrowing and our finances. We will, of course, invest in the communities to ensure that the ambitions of our council strategy are realised as they have already been outlined tonight. However, I think our prudent approach is the right one given the current situation and means we can take a long-term strategic approach to the improvement of our area. Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Johnson. The motion is now open for debate. There's no debate. I will assume that all members are in agreement with the motion unless they indicate they wish to speak. Can members please indicate now to speak on the motion? Thank you. The motion is carried. Item 14, reference from Licence Committee, 9th of the 2nd, 21, review of fees and charges. Councillor Kirkbride, please.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. As Vice Chairman of the Licensing Committee, I propose to move this report.
Thank you, Adrian. Have you got a seconder? Councillor Horsley?
I'll second that.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Horsley. Thank you. The motion is now open for debate. Councillor Fairbrother.
I was just wondering if Councillor Kirkbride could give us a little bit of a resume, a very short resume.
It's just debate.
All right, okay. I just wondered what in particular that that's the changes. I'm not on the licensing committee, never have been.
It's in the report, and Councillor Kirkbride needn't reply. I assume that all members are in agreement with the motion unless they indicate that they wish to speak. Can members please indicate now, please? Thank you. The motion is carried. Reference from Executive, 24th of the 2nd, 21, Working Town Centre Supplementary Planning Document. Councillor Fitzgerald, please.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. In October last year, Executive approved the publication of the draft Workington Town Centre Supplementary Planning Document for public consultation. The consultation ran from the 14th of October to the 4th of December 2020. 17 responses were received from local residents and businesses, and a summary of their comments can be found from page 329 in your agenda this evening. The SPD has been amended where possible to take account of all these comments. The role and nature of town centres has been changing over the last few years with the closure of many retailers and the growth of online shopping. This trend has accelerated rapidly due to the COVID-19 pandemic. The supplementary planning document provides more detailed planning guidance to enable Workington Town Centre to successfully adapt and to prosper. In particular, the SPD provides further guidance to support the implementation of the policies and site allocations contained in the local plan parts 1 and 2, and the delivery of the Workington Investment Plan and Towns Fund bid. And of course, we have just heard today, haven't we, of the success of that bid, and that is really news to be celebrated. What a huge blessing that is for Workington. I'm so excited about that. The Workington Town Centre Supplementary Planning Document focuses on land and premises contained within the town centre boundary as defined in the local plan. It recognises the importance of delivering well-designed, accessible open spaces that are connected by a safe and high-quality network of pedestrian and cycling routes. To help achieve this, the SPD provides guidance on design, green infrastructure and public realm as well as improvements to pedestrian and cycling links within the town centre. Increasing vacancies in the high street will make the repurposing and reuse of empty properties even more important. The SPD is supportive of repurposing buildings that can introduce uses such as housing and business space, as well as expanding the town's retail, leisure and cultural offer. Guidance is also provided for key development sites in the town centre. The SPD was approved at executive last week, and I therefore move that the Workington supplementary planning document is adopted by the full council at this evening's meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Fitzgerald. Have you got a seconder?
I'd like to second that, Deputy Mayor, and give reasons of why I would do that, please.
You may, Councillor Johnson.
So I'm happy to support the adoption of this policy today. Workington, and in my view, Workington Town Centre, has an important role to play in West Cumbria. The town faces many challenges, including the challenge around the future of the high street, and we have an important role to play in helping to meet them. This document will assist us to do just that by supporting the implementation of the local plan and, of course, the further regeneration of the town. It provides the additional level of guidance that we expect on a number of issues that will become increasingly important to us as the town centre continues to evolve over the coming years. Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Johnson. The motion is now open for debate. Are you got your hand up to speak, Mike? Or do you want? You got your hand up, Mike. All right, grand. I will assume that all members are in agreement with the motion unless they indicate that they wish to speak. Can members indicate now, please? Thank you. The motion is carried. Overview and Scrutiny Committee update report. Councillor Heaslip, please.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. I would just like to draw members' attention at item 4.7. There's a slight misprint in the report. Very sorry. It should say the future items under consideration in the work programme rather than under consideration for next year's work programme, because some of those items we're already working on in this year's work programme, just for information there. We have at 4.3 an update. We have actually looked at the papers for the budget before it came to council tonight. So it's a done deal in that respect, but I will report to council that we did look at some detailed aspects of the budget, which we wanted some greater clarity on how the spending on those items actually to be achieved and how they fitted the council plan, which we'll be taking up later. Apart from that, I'm happy to answer any questions on the report, either now or by email. And please copy in, if you do email, please copy in my co-chair Ian Greenie. Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Heaslip. Are there any questions, please? I will assume that all members know the report unless they indicate that they wish to speak. Can members now indicate? Thank you. The report is noted. Item 17, governance updates. Councillor Fitzgerald, please.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. Councillors, in paragraph 4.1 on page 352 of your agenda, the recent urgent decision around the local restriction support grant is fully explained. The government's expectation being that grants would be issued to affected businesses as soon as possible. Paragraphs 4.3 to 4.10 explain changes to the council's contract procurement rules, which have been circulated to and commented upon by members of the cross-party Constitution Working Group. I therefore move the recommendation that the summary of all the CEO urgent action decisions and special urgency executive decisions be noted and the changes to the Constitution as set out in paragraph 4.3 be approved. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Fitzgerald. Have you a seconder, please?
I'll second that, Mr. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Johnson. The motion is now open for debate. I will assume that all members are in agreement with the motion unless they indicate that they wish to speak. Can members please indicate now? Thank you. The motion is carried. I now call the meeting to a close. Thank you for your attendance and your